Hey guys, today we're going to be doing more factoring, except we are going to be moving on so that we're doing a different method for factoring. For the past couple days, we've been working with the box method for factoring, and today we're doing something called factoring by grouping. So here is a complete list of all of the notes. If you guys want to pause the video right now and just copy those down, we're going to go through every single one of these steps. And I'll go over them as I go along too. So if you want to wait, and write them down as we go along, that might also be a good idea. So the first thing that we're going to do, remember all of these polynomials are going to come in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. And so the first step is always going to be, it's going to be the same thing as before. We are going to make a table, like before, with a times c on the top, and we're going to use that to find two numbers that add up to get b. So let's find an example here. So for this one, let's take A, B, and C. Remember, A is 1. In this case, B is -12, and C is 32. Those are just the numbers in front of those variables. If there's no number in the front there, it's 1. So the first thing we're going to do is make that table. And A times C is just 32. So we have to use that to find two numbers that add up to get this b, this -12. So if I know that that's going to be a negative number, that means that I know that I have to have, well, if that's positive and that number is negative, these two numbers both have to be negative, right? And the reason for that, if they're both positive, that would be positive. So we'll do -1 times -32 gives you positive 32, -2 times -16, negative, positive 32. Those don't add up though. And -4 times -8. So -4 times -8, positive 32. And when you add those together, that would give you -12. So we found those two numbers. So the next step is where things become a little bit different. We're not going to make a box. We're going to do this thing. We're going to split the middle term, the b term, into the two numbers we just found. And so it'll look like this. We're going to split that up. So we're going to copy down the n squared, keep that the same. And then we're going to split the -12n into the -4 and the -8. So it'll look like this. So we have -4n minus 8n, and then plus 32. So we may notice all of this would add up to get that over there. -4 and -8 equals -12. So we have that. The next thing that we're going to do, put parentheses around the first two and second two terms. This is why we call this grouping. I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to group these two terms together and those two terms together, just in parentheses. All right. Next thing that we have to do, we have to find the GCF of both groups in parentheses and rewrite using these GCFs. And note, we have to make sure that what is left inside the parentheses is equal. And that'll make sense once we do that. So we'll look at this term. What is the GCF between, well, we're just looking over to here to the left. What's the greatest common factor there? Well, what's something that goes into both n squared and -4n? There's not a number that goes into both of those, but n would go into both of those, right? So n squared divided by n would just be n. We took an n out. And -4n divided by n, we took that n out, so that's -4. All right? The next thing, well, I know that 8 goes into both of those, so I could say plus 8, and then -8n divided by 8 is -n, and 32 divided by 8 is 4, positive 4. So we have to make sure, we have to make sure that those two things are equal. Are those two things equal right now? N and -n, -4 and positive 4. So no. Remember, make sure what is left in the parentheses is equal. They're close, but they're not quite equal. So this is not how we break it down, but let's instead of using positive 8, let's use -8. So we'll do the same thing here, n minus 4, and we'll take out a -8 this time, -8. So -8n divided by -8, that's just n. And 32 divided by -8, that's -4. So looking inside, those two things are equal now. n minus 4 and n minus 4. We have something else, the n minus 8. So final step, combine the GCFs, or the greatest common factors, into one factor and use what is left in the parentheses as the other factor. So this is what that means. We take these two things, the n and the negative 8, we'll make that into a parenthesis. So n minus 8. And in the other parenthesis, we'll write down what is in both of those. So n minus 4. That is our answer. So that's the answer to that one. So that's how that works. Let's go through another couple examples so that we can get this down a little bit faster. For instance, here, A is 2, C is negative 18, so the top is going to be negative 36. Ways to get negative 36 would be like negative 1 times positive 36, negative 2 times 18, negative 3 times 12, negative 4 times 9, and look, I've already found two numbers that add up to positive 5. So those are going to be the numbers that I use to break down that 5b in the middle. So we're going to go through that. We have to copy down this, but break up the middle. So we have 2b squared minus 4b plus 9b minus 18. And we have to put parentheses around those terms, like that. Now, we want to find the greatest common factor of the stuff in this parentheses and the greatest common factor of the stuff in that parentheses. The greatest common factor here, so I know that a b goes into both of those, goes into the b squared and the b, and I also noticed that a 2 goes into a 2 and a 4, so I can take out 2b, or not to be. So 2b squared divided by 2b is just b, and negative 4b divided by 2b is just negative 2, because 4 divided by 2 is 2, and the b is all gone. Over here, I can take out of the 9b and the negative 18, I can't take b out of both of those. I can't take the variable out, but I could take out a 3, or even bigger than that, a 9. 9 goes into 9 and goes into 18. So we'll take out a 9. 9b divided by 9 is just b. Negative 18 divided by 9 is negative 2. So are those equal to each other, b minus 2 and b minus 2? Yes, those are. Very good. So that means I take the two GCFs, combine those as one of my factors, 2b plus 9, and I take the thing in parentheses, and that's my other factor, b minus 2. So that's my answer. There we go. Last one, try to do this quickly enough. Got big numbers this time. So a times c, 10 times 40 is 400. And ways to break that down, I know I have to get negatives. So for instance, I would have to do something like negative 10 times negative 40, because those two numbers multiply together to get positive 400, but add up to get a negative. That doesn't quite work for this one because they don't add up to negative 41, but I could use negative 16 and negative 25. Negative 16 times negative 25 is 400, and negative 16 plus negative 25 is negative 41. So those are the things I'm going to use. Next, I have to break down the middle bit. So I'm going to have 10m squared minus 16m minus 25m plus 40. So I've broken down that middle bit. The other two things are the same. Put parentheses around both sections. Make sure the negative is in there too. And now I'm going to divide things up. So what's the number that goes into all of that stuff? Well, that would be 2m. So I would get 5m minus 8. And here, I could take out a negative 5, and that would be 5m minus 8 again. And that means that I can